We are demanding justice. We are demanding justice, and I want to make sure we film everything, because we are gathered here at the War Memorial at a conference which is supposed to be about building trust between the police and the community. And the community has been put out of this meeting. The community has not been allowed to participate in this meeting. The community has been intentionally exercised from this gathering. They say that they have a capacity of 375 people here, and that's the reason why if you did not pre-register, then you weren't allowed to come in. But I actually registered. There were people who came and registered and were asked to leave, were asked not to participate. And if you really want to ask a question, if there are 375 people inside, how many of them are law enforcement and how many of them are from the community? How many of them are from the city of Trenton? How many of them have been connected with the struggle around what has been the main issue that has brought the community together to look at the relationship between the police and between the community, that of the shooting of a 14-year-old boy, Radazz Hearns? I suspect there are very few, if any, on the inside. But let me just say to you that that's okay. Because we never expected that the solutions or the answers were going to come from inside of this building. We are gathered here at this war memorial because, yes, there is a war. There is a war that is being waged on poor communities. There is a war which is being waged upon communities of color. There is a war which is being waged on 14-year-old boys who are given instructions about what they need to do to be able to survive. Why do we have to give 14-year-old boys instructions about how to live simply by walking down the street? I have a 14-year-old son, and I hate that I have to warn him that if you don't dance, if you don't submit to indignity, if you don't allow people to mistreat you a certain way, that there is a very real possibility that you could be killed by an officer that is supposed to be responsible for public safety. So we come here with demands being very specific. And we are happy to have some representatives of the press here, but I hope everyone has their phone, everyone is videoing, everyone is taking pictures, because we need to share this on Facebook, on Twitter, online. We need to share this throughout the social media networks. We are demanding three things today, and let's be very clear. One, we are demanding that they drop the charges against Radazz Hearns. Yeah. A 14-year-old boy who was shot 7 times. And the entire conversation has been about what he's going to be charged with, about whether or not he'll be charged as an adult, about whether or not he'll remain in the juvenile court. Wrong question. Wrong question. We shouldn't even be asking that. The question is, are you going to charge the officers, officer who, officer why, officer how come, because they will not tell us their names? Are you going to charge the officers that shot this boy 7 times, but shot at least 15 times? They were intending to kill him, and they failed. They were intending to kill him on August the 7th, but they failed because they only shot him 7 times, and by the grace of God, there was a hedge of protection around him. By the grace of God, his life was not taken away. By the grace of God, unlike Mike Brown, who was shot 7 times, Radazz Hearns is still alive today. And so we stand out here at this war memorial giving thanks that we didn't have another casualty of the war in our communities today. Giving thanks that we still have a life of a young man who still has a future, and we are demanding that the charges be dropped. The Attorney General of the state of New Jersey is supposedly speaking right now. The U.S. Attorney, Paul Fishman, is supposedly speaking in the opening session right now. The Mercer County prosecutor, Onofre, is supposedly speaking in the opening session right now. So we want to send a very clear message. Drop the charges against Radazz Hearns. Drop the charges against this 14-year-old child and focus your attention elsewhere. We know that there was a crime committed. And the crime that we absolutely know that happened, and I don't know what happened on August the 7th. Let's be very clear. I don't think any of us were out there. We know that there were people who shot someone who were out there, and we know that there was a person who was shot who was out there, and we know that there were witnesses. And the witnesses have testified to something very different than what the police are saying, but we don't know what happened in terms of details. What we do know is that there has been an attempt to assassinate the character of this child since he was shot on August the 7th. We know that after August the 7th, they leaked his juvenile records, and it may be representatives of these officers that are walking back and forth and gathering around us, because we know that it came from the police. Protected, shielded juvenile records were given to the press. They were given to the press to intentionally make it look like they were justified in shooting Radazz Hearns, that they were right to try to kill a 14-year-old boy. That is the reason why those records were released. And so that is a crime. It is against the law in the state of New Jersey to release juvenile records. Do we know that? It is against the law for the police to have leaked this information to the press. So we are demanding that the New Jersey Attorney General refocus their efforts and they go after prosecuting every single officer from every single agency that released this information illegally to the press for the purpose of assassinating his character. They failed to assassinate him on August the 7th, and they continue to try to assassinate him today by releasing this information. And so we demand that this ends, and we demand that those officers be prosecuted and be held accountable for releasing that protected information.
That's right. Exactly.
This is a reasonable request. This isn't a radical revolutionary request. This is saying simply follow the law. Simply enforce the law. You don't need to do an investigation as to if the law was broken. That's already clear. Mugshots were released. Juvenile records were released. School records were released. It's already clear the law has been broken. All we're asking is prosecute those individuals who are responsible. And you have the ability, New Jersey Attorney General Hoffman, to find out who they are. You have the ability, Mercer County Prosecutor Onofre, to find out who they are. If you need to seize their computers, if you need to track all their records, if you need to follow your phone calls, do your investigative work in-house and hold those individuals responsible. So that's our second demand. Number one demand, drop all the charges against Radazz Hearns. Number two demand, prosecute all of those individuals responsible for illegally leaking this information. And then number three is a critically important demand and our last demand. We believe in what it is that they claim that they're trying to do in this building today. We believe that the community needs to be directly involved in what happens in our community. We believe that the community not only has a right, we have a responsibility to make sure that our communities are safe, to make sure that our communities are protected, to make sure that our communities are not violated, whether it be by people who live within our community or those who police our community. So what we are calling for in our third demand is the creation of an independent civil review board. A civil review board which will oversee, investigate, and have a role in any case where a police officer shoots an individual or is charged with some form of abuse of force or misconduct. That there should be a statewide police review board made up of civilians. We should be very clear, and they're going to talk about this today, but those who are coming in, consider yourself blessed that you're allowed to go in, because they didn't allow us to come in. They put us out of this meeting. But in this meeting, they're supposedly going to talk about what the protocols are for justice. And when there's a police shooting by state police or by a county sheriff. And those protocols say that there's a shooting team, right? And we have Rich Rivera here, who is the chairman of the New Jersey Human Relations Council, a former law enforcement officer who is going to speak to us about some of this. But what we should be very clear is that the people who were on the shooting team to investigate state police, who shoot citizens, are also state police. State police officers are called upon to police their brothers and their sisters. If they're not active duty, many of them are retired. They retire from the state police and then they go to work for the New Jersey Attorney General's office. And those are the individuals, by and large, who are called upon to investigate when there's a police shooting. We can't get justice in that kind of situation, can we? We can't get justice. There's a conflict of interest. There's a conflict of interest if, you know, as much as I care about, or even more importantly, we could never ask Salima Jackson to be responsible for investigating what happened to her son. She's emotionally connected. She's involved. That's family. We would never think that she could be the head of an investigation to determine what happened with her son. However, we are supposed to accept that the brothers, and this is a family, the blue uniforms that they wear, they will say to us that they are their brothers and sisters in arms. They are connected as family, but they are given the responsibility of policing their own. And we say to you, you're emotionally involved, you're directly connected with your family, and there is no way that we can expect that you are going to be able, without a conflict of interest, to head up an investigation of your own. So we're calling for an independent civilian review board that will be made up of independent people of the community that can review these cases, that can make binding recommendations, that have investigative power. This is something that we already have in the city of Newark. There is a model. They're going to be talking about that today, but they're going to talk about it without community people being there. They're going to talk about it without none of us being there. They are going to, and this is the contradiction. This is the contradiction. The people who have been working for justice for Radazz, the people who have actively been involved even before this case, with working with the community, whether it be the Citizens Police Advisory Councils, whether it be folks from the United Mercer Interfaith Organization, whether it be the individuals from Black Lives Matter at Rutgers University, those individuals, whether it be our churches that are on the front line, whether it be our mosques that are on the front line, they were not allowed to come into this meeting today. Wow. We were put out of the meeting. We were put out of the meeting, and they said, oh, well, if you didn't register, pre-register online a couple of weeks ago, then we're not allowing you to come in because we're over capacity. That's the rationalization that they have. And I'll say this, if they are over capacity, if they have so many people in this big, huge room that they filled it up, then you know what? Maybe they should send some of these officers just to come on outside and look at us some more so some of us can go in.
All right.
All right? I mean, because then empty it out. You have a chain of command. You can have the New Jersey Attorney General that can say, okay, well, we're gonna send out, you know, how many people we have here? Maybe 25 people. We're gonna ask 25 police to come outside. You know, you'll get the information later. And we're gonna allow the community to come in. We're going to allow Darren Freedom Green to come in. We're going to allow Richard Rivera to come in. We're going to allow Paul Raybergen to come in. We're going to allow Karen Hernandez-Granson to come in. Hey, we're going to allow Salima Jackson, the mother of Radazz Hearns, to come in. She should be sitting on the front row. Because too many families have to deal with what it is that she's dealing with. She should be on the front row. And you know what? In fact, she shouldn't even be on the front row. She should be on the stage. Because it's not even about them telling her what it is that she needs to do. It's not about giving her instructions. They need to find out from her, hey, what went wrong? What went wrong? Because you know what? When her child was shot, how long was it before they even came and spoke to you and even said anything to you? Hours and hours afterwards. She was not allowed to see her son after he was shot. So they need to talk to Pastor Darrell Armstrong. And they need to say, hey, how did you organize individuals from throughout the community to come together at your church to talk about this issue? What happened? How were you involved? How were you able to do that? But we should know very clearly, and I want Penny Ray from the Trentonian to know. I want our friend Keith Brown from the Trenton Times to know that the New Jersey Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney and the Mercer County Prosecutor have offended the community today.
Yes, they have.
They have not built trust today. Their conference failed within the first 30 minutes. And I say their conference failed within the first 30 minutes because the purpose of this conference was building trust between police and communities.
And no people in there?
That's the thing, no.
Wow.
That's the thing, building trust between police and communities. We came here with good intentions. We came here because we wanted to be a part of a public dialogue. We wanted to be a part of a transparent dialogue. And I'll send a message as I close, and I'm going to ask for Rich Rivera from the New Jersey Human Relations Council to come forward. I want to say this about the faith leaders that might be inside. I want to say this about some of the community leaders that might have been able to sneak past the registration or somehow were included while others were excluded. We need to avoid closed-door private meetings. Amen? If it's not public, if it's secret, if it's behind these big closed doors, if it's behind registered attendees only, and you have to be able to have online access, and you have to have received an invitation on the front end, if it's behind closed doors, it's never good. And when you emerge as a pastor, or as an imam, or as a NAACP leader, or as a community leader, when you emerge from behind closed doors, you don't come out with the appearance of having more integrity. You don't come out with the appearance of generating more trust. It makes it seem as if they don't trust us, but they can trust you. It makes it seem as if they don't trust the community, that they don't want to deal with the community, that there's something that they think they can't get past the community, but they think they can get away with it with you. Yes. So we encourage those leaders who are invited to closed doors meetings to come out of these meetings, yes, to not agree to these meetings, to demand that they be public, to demand that they be open, to demand that they be transparent, because that's the only way we have impartial and independent investigations. That's the only way we get justice. Justice for Radazz, justice in our communities. That's the only way we build trust between community and police. And now I want to ask Rich Rivera, who is a former law enforcement officer, who is the head of the New Jersey Human Relations Council, who is registered and could be on the inside right now, but has decided instead to come out here and to stand with us and to speak to us. Mr. Richard Rivera.